It really resonates with me personally. I am a trained equine scientist, but I'm also a dressage rider, and an adult amateur dressage rider, which basically means I like to pay women judges, mostly, sometimes they're men, to judge me. I'm not saying, riders need to become scientists and start publishing papers. And I'm not saying scientists all need to go out and learn how to ride horses. But what I am saying is I think that the more they communicate together and they respect what each other can do and the knowledge on both sides, it can make the end result better. And at the end of the day, the horse doesn't care. The horse doesn't care which side of the fence you're on. The horse just knows that the decisions that are being made, how they affect him.
So what does this pipeline look like, and who do equine scientists actually become? And to be clear, this is not a comprehensive list of who equine scientists actually become later on in life. I tried to organize this so that on top of the big arrow there is more academic in nature, and on the bottom of that would be more industry focused. Now there's a significant amount of crossover between the two of these, but we're talking about research professors, extension professors, laboratory technicians, teachers. So what does it look like when science works, right? And for the horse specifically, right, this is just one real easy to look at example here, right? Early in the 1920s, the average lifespan of horses was less than 11 years old. That's it. Who here rides a horse that's older than 11 years? Not everybody, right? The average age of horses now is greater than 20 years old. Science is not the opposite of passion. Oftentimes we talk about science and emotion on two different ends of the spectrum, and unfortunately, that isn't really the case, right? Science and passion can live together, and to be honest with you, I think Dr. Vineyard and I both agree with this, is that science really is passion made precise, right? Science is the ability to have a passion for that, have a passion for the animal, have a passion for the industry, have a passion for what you're trying to accomplish, and making it precise. But when you wash out the foundation, when you take away the validity of that science, when you take away the science and the trust of that science, everything that rests on top of that has a chance of falling. Everything that rests on top of that has a chance of failing. So it's on us to make sure that what we can do is do good science, do appropriate science, do ethical science, so that we can make sure that
when good science is applied to whatever you're doing, but in terms of the horse's health, whether it's performance, whether it's their metabolic health, just longevity, like we were talking about, when good nutrition and when it's optimized, you can optimize all of these different aspects of equine health. So, at the end of the day, I think a scientifically literate industry is a good protection for the horse industry in general.
So what can we do in this room? I don't just want to leave us with this doom and gloom, right? The things that we're doing today is exactly what we need to be doing as an industry. We need to be advocating to the university administrators, right? We need to be doing things like the internships or the program, the team program that you were talking about, where you can apply for the funding to do some of these types of research. We need to lobby the local, the state, the federal politicians. All of the things that the AHC does, all the things that our industry does, these are the things that we need to be doing. And I love this quote here on the bottom: "The scientist who keeps your policy defensible, your product credible, and your athlete healthy was trained somewhere." Every single person in this room and all of your horses has benefited from a scientist who was trained somewhere. If that somewhere doesn't exist, think about the effect that could potentially have on our horses.
And as the AHC and the UHC work to constantly evaluate and understand drivers in equine welfare, access to affordable and logistically feasible euthanasia consistently come up as a very common concern for everyday horse owners. We get emails about it, we hear about it when we go to other welfare summits. So we're excited to bring you this panel discussion today. And I know it's weird to say we're excited to talk about euthanasia, but kind of part of our overarching goal here is to make sure talking about euthanasia becomes easier and becomes more common and just becomes a really typical, everyday part of conversation about horse ownership. We want to normalize talking about euthanasia. And so to better understand these challenges, the American Horse Council surveyed 3,154 horse owners in the United States. We covered all 50 states, and we covered Puerto Rico with some of these questions. And our questions specifically asked, have you ever owned a horse you have to euthanize? What were the hardest parts of that for you? If you have an emergency that the horse requires euthanasia, or if you came out in the morning and your horse was deceased, are you financially able to manage that? And have you ever had to delay euthanasia because of finances? And the most important question, which kind of relays all of this and trickles down, is do you have an end-of-life plan for your horse? That planning, financial preparedness, and service availability are directly linked to timely euthanasia decisions and improved horse welfare. So
we work in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, so we see how attitudes to euthanasia can differ according to religion and according to region and according to culture, and also according to law. We do a lot of policy influence in Europe, and availability of euthanasia is not uniform. For instance, in Italy, you can only get euthanasia if it's a medical emergency. We did a study that actually, this is in the UK, but about 1 in 8 horses dies of natural causes. So that means 7 out of 8. Somebody needs to make that decision.
I myself have been certified in humane euthanasia for over a decade and a half, and I've counseled thousands of families through making reasonable decisions in relation to the varied species that they see. This is a systems failure. And when we take the pressure off of looking at this as a horse owner to horse owner failure, and kind of rise above and think about the systems that we need to create those humane pathway outcomes and have these important conversations, horse owner to horse owner and horse owner to animal welfare professional, we start to see the shift.
That direct safety net is one of the programs that falls under the Foundation for the Horse, which is the charitable arm of the American Association of Equine Practitioners. So in that capacity, I deal very specifically only with veterinarians. So a veterinarian in this case for this panel is someone who recognizes that they have a client who is unable to pay for, in this case, euthanasia, and the horse is needing to be euthanized, whether that is a delay in care being administered to them or the horse has some kind of catastrophic event. That direct safety net will refund up to $500 to that AAEP veterinarian for euthanizing that horse. With regards to the Kentucky Horse Council, we offer a $250 rebate essentially to the veterinarian for providing care for euthanasia care for that animal. In this capacity, I deal very specifically with the horse owners. So they're calling me, they're saying, I have a horse that needs to be euthanized, can I have the money? Now, when you get into the depths of our application, they don't need prior approval. They can literally just mail me the information that we need and we will provide a check to the veterinarian. Does it need to be a euthanasia conversation? Does it need to be a relinquishment to an adoption or rescue organization? But a lot of times, it's exactly what these ladies are mentioning. It is a conversation to assure someone that euthanasia is not a bad decision, if that is, the path that they need to take.
We have seen that this piece about euthanasia and working with our community has become so very important for multiple reasons. First and foremost, for the horses themselves. As we try to say at CHR, and we encourage folks, is we'd rather be a day too early than a minute too late, and have any horse, be in pain before we can get to them. So we've created a program similar to some of these, which is called Compassionate Endings, where we are trying to get ahead of it and have these conversations with owners saying, does it make sense? You've had this horse on your property for 20 years and they're 28 years old. Are you asking too much of that horse to make them not only, you're asking them to transition twice actually, because we're a transition center. So transition to us and then find a new home for that horse. So we will offer, we will pay for the vet appointment, the euthanasia, and the retrieval, which is often the most expensive part. If we can get those folks to do right by their horses and give them a peaceful in their own home, the program also works if you have an emergency euthanasia, because a lot of people don't have, in our area, it's for the whole total cost, it's about $1,200 to $2,000. And a lot of people don't have that money in their back pocket.
One of the things that I've seen move the needle is taking the concept away of this being an individualized family issue. I like to start with, we're here today and I want you to know you are not alone. Horse owners across this state, across this country, struggle in this exact moment, making this really difficult decision. This is a systems failure. The cost of this and the lack of access to resources is not your family problem. That's a problem we all created. And I'm really sorry that problem has come to your front door today. And then we then I'm in the door, right? Because I've made that connectivity and that trust and that communication. And then I like to talk about the privilege of being the last owner. And that's really difficult. It's really difficult to talk through that with people. And that's everything from your horse to your dog or your cat. You know, this is a we love our animals discussion. But the privilege of being the last owner, especially for a horse, is something that's so sacred. I like to talk to them about what it looks like when that horse gets trailered elsewhere. They look for you, right? Like they get off and they're alert and they're looking around, and they could meet the most compassionate person in the world. I could be standing right there. I could have treats, I could have all of the best intentions in the world. I could know how to handle a horse appropriately and do de-escalation. It could be the most quiet environment. They don't care that I'm standing there. They're looking for you. And so the privilege of being there in those moments for that animal is so important.
But another avenue we have, and again, this is something that has always existed, is what they call a knacker man. Now, I think it's a terrible name for what actually is just a very brilliant, compassionate, fundamental role in the horse world. And basically, a knacker man is licensed to put animals down, large animals down, livestock and horses, and to dispose of the bodies. And it used to be a free service because they could actually sell the body or the body parts. With EU regulations around mad cow disease that were introduced, there's very strict regulations now as what you can do in terms of the remains of the body. So now it costs about £200, but you can call them, they're local. There's actually a whole national directory service, the Fallen Stock Service. They serve farmers as well as horse owners. And you give them a call, and they come, and they can take away an already deceased animal for you that was put down by a vet or died of natural causes, or they can come and they can do it themselves, but they're trained in handling and all the guidance around welfare at the time of killing. And some of them have just been told just the most compassionate, life-saving people around. You know, so we actually have sort of a pack for horse owners called Just In Case, and it's about planning end of life for your horse, just in case, you know, you're not around and something happens, but you know, what you would leave with your livery yard, how you would want the horse disposed of, you know, what are the, knowing who you would go to. So just getting your head around what it's like, what your options are. So getting people to think about that is part of responsible ownership, part of giving your horse a good life and a good time.
History with mass bail stuff comes from the very beginning of founding Heart of Phoenix. Started doing horse rescue in 2009. We were the first equine advocacy organization to exist in West Virginia. And it was around the time that the broker lot started to grow. Social media gave it the wind in its sails. It couldn't exist without social media. And so very early on, I think going back to even 2010, I wrote a piece on the Heart of Phoenix blog that was very opposed to participating because what I could see the future turning into seems really bad. What I have seen happen is it's taken over horse rescue. So it is crippling real horse rescue. It is taking all of the funding away. There is a very small amount of funding in charitable giving in the world that lands in animal welfare. And a very, very small amount of that goes into horses. There's a finite amount of dollars that are given. I routinely am hearing from organizations that do not pull from mass bail lots that I cannot continue this work. There isn't money here. The donors don't want to see an owner surrender horse. They don't want to see a law enforcement case. They want to know the horse was saved from slaughter, or they do not want to give any money. Because what you need to know about mass bail lots, the horses aren't going to slaughter. They're not in danger of slaughter. It's a fictional threat. That doesn't mean that any horse that has landed in these schemes may not eventually ship. It is highly unlikely. It is just a process of holding horses for ransom because they can. What a great business model. Go to low-end auctions, prey on senior citizens giving horses away, prey on the lady who thinks the horse is going to a good home, masquerade as a rescue operation, accept a horse for $0, $100, and then say, this horse is shipping to slaughter. I need $2,000. Do you know how many times they may collect that same $2,000 bail? Who's to say? So you have a horse trader that operates a social media page. They collect horses, low-end horses. My experience, and this wraps into the euthanasia panel, is the bulk of these horses simply need euthanasia. That's what they need. The answer to these horses typically is euthanasia. So they post this horse online. They misrepresent the horse by age, by breed, by what it can do, health. They say the horse ships to on this date, and here's the Venmo, the PayPal, the number to call with your credit card. You can save this horse from the truck coming. The truck is not coming. Just keep that in your mind. No truck was coming. It is a lie. It is not real. But it does something within us, right? It plays into an emotional vortex of, I have saved the day, I am Superman. Look at this. I've sent $100 toward this, and I've prevented the truck from coming. And I've saved the life of this horse, and it's going to beautiful green pastures somewhere. But it isn't. I'll show you where it's going. That's where these horses go. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent to bail these yearlings. Across multiple stories, across multiple bail lots, all over the West. So tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars raised. Verifiable, who knows how much we can't verify. We could say potentially $100,000 was sent to the people involved in the starvation and neglect of these yearlings. And so here's the thing, we won't take part in the mass bail, but now there's just another neglect case that somebody wants to surrender. So we took them, some of them died. Of this group, I think we took 5 or 6. I personally went and loaded them. Some of them had already died there. But then the story came out. I didn't know the background. Then the print screens and the whole story came out. This is what mass bailing does. But here's the important part. The money is out there to save them, but it was misused. The money is, there are people with the money willing to give it to save them in a hysterical manner. You know, we might have raised $1,000 once we took them looking like that. Any horse could be at risk. And what I mean by that is any horse could deteriorate to the point they're in a low sale if they relieve your care. There's nothing keeping a horse, it doesn't matter the background. If you let a horse that's disadvantaged leave your property and kick the can down the road, if a horse that you know has an injury that makes it not very marketable, that it's not going to hold up, or it has behavioral issues, and you sell the horse, it's very possible that horse, at some point, maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe it's 5 months, could end up in one of these mass bail lots. The vast majority of these horses are landing somewhere that is going to be far worse than had they shipped over the border. But the thing you have to remember is they were never shipping. It is a scheme. It is a fictional work to create income, but to drain the donations from actual effective rescue. What can we do about it? Well, I think there's a whole lot we can do very easily. It isn't that difficult. One is that there can be legal standards. What defines fraud? What is happening is fraud. And I'm not an attorney, so I can't tell you exactly how and when, but a set of good equine legal attorneys sitting down, going state to state, there is a way to prove this is fraudulent. The attorney generals in states have looked into it to a degree. It is complicated, it is convoluted, but from a legal standpoint, you can't tell me there isn't an attorney out there in each state that could find a way to easily connect these as fraudulent models. But no matter what industry you're in, you rely on aftercare, whether you want to or not. Now, many parts of the industry know that and they have aftercare programs, but it doesn't matter what part of the equine industry you're in. Aftercare is part of it. And you have to it's not charity, it's stewardship. You have to have a process in place within the industry to make sure that good horse rescues are able to operate and that we have a very vocal platform against things that are happening that are totally deception-based. And so if everyone in a unified way speaks against it, it has impact. It's not going to be enough, but it does something. And until what we have seen, there's been a recent bit of stuff going around, and you'll see a lot of pushback. But the more we continue to just repeat, mass bailing is fraud, mass bailing hurts horses, mass bailing is killing real rescue, it will get through to some people. But the industry as a whole needs to do it. Law enforcement, veterinarians, performance owners, breeders, casual trail riders, all may be in a position to call a solid rescue at some point. There isn't a one of you in here, you have horses. You don't know what life has ahead. You have no idea what can happen. But a horse welfare organization that you can depend on could be in your future for your horse. And let me tell you, you'll be very grateful if you know a good organization if the time comes where you have to call one. And if the industry does not do something to absolutely end mass bailing, you will not have a good organization to call.